My dad, I remember him telling me very young that, like, you need to remember that everybody is watching you every second of the day that you are here, whether you're picking up poo in the backfield or whether you're in the middle of the ring. Everybody's watching you. And at the end of the day, people care less about your accolades and they care more about the type of person that you present yourself to be. I created something called the Bitter Barn. I'll go somewhere by myself, either have a good cry or be pissed off or call my mom, whatever it is, call my best friend and just be like, oh, I'm so disappointed in myself. And when I talk to any non-dog people, they're like, oh my gosh, that's amazing. You're going to Sweden. Like, what do you get when you win? Like, how much money do you get? And I'm thinking, oh my God, I can't tell them that, like, I'm spending $6,000 to go over for 2 minutes and I get absolutely nothing.
Hi, my name is Christoffer Endresen. Welcome to the Champion's Journey. Today, I have a very special guest. It's Kayl McCann. I had the pleasure to meet Kayl in person at the WAO. I think it's 2 years ago now, or at least 1.5 years ago.
Yeah, I think 2 years ago.
And we had a really cool conversation. I gave her my T-shirt. I hope she still have the T-shirt.
I do have your T-shirt still.
And yeah, we had a long conversation and we just bonded and it was so fun. And we met a couple of times also in Sweden this year at the AWC, which was fun to catch up. But I also asked you if you
Totally.
could come on this podcast to share your story, your journey. And now we're here.
Yeah, I'm so excited. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. And so probably some people know who you are. You have the McCann dog training facilities in Canada. How far is it from Toronto?
We're like 45 minutes outside of Toronto. So, like, not quite in city, but we're, about 45 minutes or so.
Yeah.
So not too far.
And how big is the facility, if you don't mind me asking?
Yeah, it's quite big. So we have like 3 training halls like within the facility that offer like different levels of classes that often run at the same time. And then we have a really nice agility arena, and being in Canada, it's heated. So that means that I get to play agility in like a turf cozy place all year round, which I am eternally grateful for. We have a drop diving pool, and then we have about 22 acres of land. So yeah, it's a pretty big establishment. My parents, it's my family's business. So my parents started it a long time ago. And it is really kind of exciting because when they started, they were like renting out church basements and fair halls and things like that. And then obviously over time, they were able to build up enough of a business that they could like grow it. And it's what had been a dream of theirs. So now I've got big shoes to fill because they're retired and I have the family legacy hanging on my shoulders and I have to make sure that I don't screw it up. So yeah, but yeah, it's a pretty cool facility. We're super lucky.
It sounds like dog heaven, basically.
Yeah, and anything you want to do with your dog, you basically can, which was kind of the goal. We want people to like come and like want to do stuff with their dog. We want them to be part of the family and like, relationship building, give them something to do, give the dog something to do that's fun, create community, all of that fun stuff. So it's a pretty great place to be. I'm lucky that it's where I get to go to work every day. And the people that we have there too are just awesome. It's like basically like going to hang out with your buddies all day long. So it's great.
That's cool. One of the things that I usually start this podcast with is asking people like, how was your life before agility? But in your case, it's like you were born into it.
Yeah, totally. That's so true. I think I did my very first agility competition when I was 6 years old. And you just really couldn't stop me since then. I really loved it. And back then, like this was quite a long time ago now, they didn't have things like junior handlers and development programs and stuff, which I look at now and think like, oh my gosh, that would have been so awesome when I was a kid to be a part of those types of things. But my parents were great. They, were very high level obedience trainers, like competitive obedience trainers. And then they did agility. And then they were actually really into flyball for years. And so I just kind of grew up going to dog shows and being around it all. And they never really, like, I have 2 siblings and they carted us around everywhere, but they didn't really push us to do it. They just sort of, they got me a dog. I asked for a dog. I think I got her when I was 3. I was little. I wasn't doing anything. They trained her for me. And basically by the time I was 6, she was trained by them well enough that I could run her around the course. And I lucked out. She was a border collie who was like sweet as pie, would do anything for anybody. And so I think it made it to be a very positive, good experience for me. And I think I just kind of like got turned on from there, and then went on to have lots of dogs. But my introduction was a really positive one, which I think was helpful because I think it could have gone both ways when I became a teenager and started partying and going out with my friends and stuff. But because I had this thing that I really enjoyed, I would like get home at a reasonable hour or get my butt out of bed the next morning after, being 18-year-old, and then, go to the competition and like switch my brain on. And I always took it really seriously because I think it just was naturally passionate. Whereas like my brother and sister, same household, same grown up, they're not in dogs at all. So it's just it's just sort of funny how it works out that
They
way.
kind of had enough of dogs, maybe.
Maybe they were like, this girl's taking it all. I'm out of here. I need to find something else that I can do. I probably ruined it for them. It's looking back, but oh well. They're doing just fine, by the way.
Yeah, I think so, and I believe so. And but it's very interesting. One thing that you talked about, especially during your teenage years, like how important was agility for you back then, and was it difficult for you to sacrifice social events in order to prioritize agility?
Yes and no. I think what ended up happening is I had a few I'm like, if you put me in a group of people, I always tend to naturally be the ringleader. And I'm the type of person that when I love something, I feel like other people would love it and I want to bring them in. So I had a couple friends, one friend in particular that I met when I was 13 years old, and we are still best friends to this day, which is really cool. But we were in school together, we did sports together, and then I was like, "Hey, you should come and, like, come to this dog show this weekend or whatever." So, I ended up actually having a few friends that would, like, come. She would run some of my dogs, she did agility, eventually she got her own dog, eventually she started working for McCann Dogs, and she still works for us to this day. So, I think that I had my needs met, but on both sides of the story. I could still, have the friend thing and be silly and goofy, but then I also, could do the dog thing as well. So I don't think it was a huge challenge for me, but I definitely will say that it kept me out of trouble because I had a natural discipline when it came to training and agility and things like that. And even when I was that age, I didn't even know about worlds or that level. It wasn't really a thing back then. I think the first world championship I went to, I was 19, but I was already like thick into wanting that to be my goal for like several years prior to that. So yeah, I don't know. I think it just always had like a natural discipline for it. I wasn't like, oh, I have to go to agility in the morning. I would rather do this. I don't really remember feeling that way, which I guess is a good thing.
Yeah, I definitely agree, and I think that's one of the beauties with doing any types of sports, especially. And I think dog sport
Yeah,
is unique because you have responsibility for another individual, which you don't have if you're playing
absolutely.
football or soccer or swimming or something like that.
Yeah,
So,
totally.
in terms of the when you were at that age in your teenage years, like how would a normal week look like for you back then?
Well, obviously, I would have school, but then also I was always very curious. So, like when I was, I would say younger than a teenager, after school, I would often go to we would always call it the hall. It was the training school. And I would sit in the back and I would listen to my parents teach. There was a couple trainers that we had that like were excellent. And I would sit and watch and I would want to copy them. I would want to train with them with my dogs. I just was like very curious, very wanted to like kind of get in there, but like also was good about like sitting back and like taking it all in. So I would do that a lot and then competitions on the weekend or not. Yeah, I have always one thing that I'm very proud of, and I think this is one of the reasons why I can stay sane, excuse me, is that I have always tried to make sure that I work in dogs, I play in dogs, I have a lot of dog friends. My whole world often is dogs, and I don't ever want to get to the point where it feels like I don't like it. So I often my whole life, and I did it very naturally when I was younger, and now I do it very intentionally, is I try to make sure that there's lots of like non-dog things in my life, whether it's people that I spend time with or my core group of people the people I'm closest to, I've met through dogs, but we will have evenings where we hang out and like we don't even mention dogs even once, or talking about other things. And I feel like that helps maintain the the passion towards it because it's like it's still like your hobby, it's still like your thing that you're excited to do. So I feel like this was a long-winded answer to I did that back then as well. Like I was obsessed, but also like I played baseball, I played competitive baseball, competitive volleyball, I swam, I played hockey, a lot of those team sports as well, which I think were massively helpful for agility, even though agility is like you're necessarily with a group of people and teams, but you're learning about winning and losing. You're worried, you're learning about how to adapt to other people and how to, you know, navigate social settings and all of those types of things. My dad's a huge sports guy. He still plays hockey and baseball to this day, and he's 72. And I think maybe he was hoping I was probably going to be a boy when I was born because I was like on skates, hitting baseballs, like doing those things really young, but I loved it, like, I absolutely loved it, but I think that that was really helpful because, like, when you're young and you're trying to learn about sportsmanship and things like that, that is definitely something I struggled with a little bit as I went on, and you're learning it in the public eye because I was pretty as a 12, 13, 14, 15, 16-year-old, I was the kid that was out running that was good, and so everyone's constantly telling you how good you are, how great you are. "Oh my god, wow, 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 wow," and as a kid, you're like, "Okay, I'm great," but now you have, like, this expectation to live up to, and then in agility, anybody who plays it knows that if you expect to be great all the time, you are in the wrong sport. Like, it's just doesn't that's not how it works, and when you're 16 years old, you don't understand that. You think and feel like because you're great sometimes, you should be great all of the time. So that was a big thing for me when I was younger, trying to like not get into that perfectionist mindset or like be worried about like not being really good all the time.
Is that something that you still have a challenge with, or do you learn tools that help you to cope with patients from yourself or from others?
I mean, I think I would lie. I would be lying if I said that it didn't creep in sometimes. I think that a lot of it has to do with I think when I was younger, it was a little bit more attached to I think this is really normal when you're young, attached to like how other people would perceive how I was doing and like wanting to like, look good all the time and do well and win all the things and get picked for all the teams. And I was a little bit more concerned about like what others thought about me. And I think now any of those feelings would creep in is very much just about myself. I have matured. I've been in it around a long enough time. I've, done well enough that I'm not really worried anymore about, you know, making a name or worrying about what other people think, but I'm a very competitive person in anything that I do, whether it's playing a board game, getting a parking spot in a parking lot. Like I want to do it well. That's just my nature. And but now it's like less about what other people think and more about like, come on, Kale, like you can do this. Like, get your shit together. Am I allowed to swear on this podcast?
Yeah, I'm from the Scandinavian, so you can do whatever you want.
Oh, okay. Okay, good. That slipped out and I thought, oh, I hope that's okay. Not that I have a potty mouth, but I can't guarantee that it won't come out if I'm speaking passionately. But anyways, yeah. Now I think if it creeps in, it's like it's just more about myself, whereas before it was definitely I was highly impacted by what others thought and felt.
Oops, I lost your sound. Something muted you. Not sure why. There you go.
Weird.
Yeah, that was weird.
Oh, okay.
But oh,
I don't know. I wasn't
uh,
touching it.
did you develop like any tools or strategies that would help you to learn how to shift your thinking? And when did you learn those?
I was really lucky to have a lot of mentors around me when I was younger. So if I was like taking things a bit too seriously, or I wouldn't say necessarily having a bad attitude. I'm not really a bad attitude type of person, but I would get really disappointed. And then, when I was younger, I didn't understand that like it would affect your dog's performance or that type of thing. If like you would come out of the ring and you'd be mad. I was never mad at the dog, but I'd be like, oh, and then the dogs would be like, oh God. And like everybody's watching you. So I had a couple really good mentors. My parents were fabulous. My both of my parents, but my dad, I remember him telling me very young that like you need to remember that everybody is watching you every second of the day that you are here, whether you're picking up poo in the backfield or whether you're in the middle of the ring. Everybody's watching you. And at the end of the day, people care less about your accolades and they care more about the type of person that you present yourself to be. And you don't want to be known as a sore loser or anything like that. You want to be known that someone who's kind, that treats their dogs well, that's a good sport, that can roll with the punches, that type of thing. And it took several of those conversations, obviously, as a 16-year-old to like get it through my thick skin, but it just sort of naturally started to make sense that at the end of the day, it was more about like how you looked than how you did. Um, and so that really resonated with me. I think I don't know if that's like necessarily a particular tool per se, but it was almost like a complete mind shift, which was incredibly helpful. Also, when I was around the age of 17 or so, I got a dog that was fantastic. She ended up being one of my greatest agility dogs ever. But back then, she was very sensitive. And so, if I had any type of sigh or disappointment at all, she literally would not run. Like she would walk, she would be really worried. And so, I had to figure out how to like, I'm the kind of person that wears my emotions on my sleeve, so and I couldn't fake it with her because we were really connected. So if I would be like, "It's okay, good girl," she'd be like, "You're lying, you're disappointed, I can feel it." And then she just desperately didn't wanna disappoint me. She just was really sensitive and in tuned to my emotions. She's the dog that, like, comes and lays it with you when you're upset. Like, she was amazing. So I kind of had to figure out how to not fake it, to actually truly feel like if you shit the bed, that like you can have a little bit of time to, be upset because of course it's disappointing. You want to do well, but then you got to like shake it off and move on. And I would say that that this particular dog was a huge shift for me in terms of like learning to kind of brush it off a little bit and, pick yourself up. Actually, I've talked about this on some of my podcasts and stuff before, but one of the tactics that I started to use myself and I now do with my students is I created something called the bitter barn. And so basically, when I come out of the ring, if I am like need a moment, I'll either take my dog if I feel like I can, or I'll pass my dog off, of course, after playing and after, making sure they leave me fine. And I'll go to my car, I'll go somewhere by myself, either have a good cry or be pissed off or call my mom, whatever it is, call my best friend and just be like, oh, I'm so disappointed in myself. And then my rule is after that time, you leave the bitter barn. Like you're not thinking or talking about it again. You're moving on to the next thing because if you're an emotional person or if you really care, I think like sometimes when I see people, they're like, oh, that's okay. It was like really fun. I'm so envious of that. I'm thinking, oh my God, like I, I know that's not fun. Like it's that balance of like being competitive and having that edge, which like really sets you apart from other people, but also like not being a crazy psychopath where like at the end of the day, yes, we should be doing this because it's fun and it's great. But I think like giving myself that time where I wasn't affecting anybody else. I'm not complaining to friends. I'm not, walking my dog and being angry and then having her be like, God, what did I do wrong? When it has nothing to do with her. It was just like a good, like, it almost kind of became funny. Like you'd come out of the ring and like my best friend Jamie, who's competed with me for years, she's like, do you need the better barn? I'm like, yeah, sure do. Can you take her? She's like, yeah, I'll see you in 15 minutes. I'm like, okay, bye. It like, and that almost like made you not have to go to the bitter barn, because you could just sort of start to joke about it a little bit. So yeah, so those are a couple of things that were really helpful. Influenced by really great people with really wise words. A dog that I had to change for, otherwise it wouldn't be successful. And then the bitter burn thing is something I don't have to use it very often anymore, but it was very
I would
helpful.
say that's a great tool. And another point that is, I think is important to talk about is actually it should be allowed to be disappointed if you're at a big event that
Yeah.
means something to you and you really want to do well. There are expectations and you really want to meet those expectations for yourself. And you definitely put in the work to get there, to compete there at that event. As long as it doesn't
Hmm.
affect your dog, being
Exactly.
disappointed, feeling those emotions of disappointment, if you leverage that properly, you can use that as fuel in order to learn new stuff, get better. And it could be potentially be a sufficient amount of fuel for the next year in terms of training your dog if you use it correctly.
Totally. Can I ask you a
Yeah.
question since this is your lane? So one thing that I have found, and actually 2 years ago when you and I had our big long chat, I think maybe we talked a little bit about this, but something that I'm curious about is, do you feel that being able to have that recovery, like go from disappointment and then be able to spin that around and then like almost like come back stronger, do you feel that that's a skill that can get rusty over time, or do you think that that's something that you either have or you don't have?
I think it definitely is a skill. And when it's a skill, it's something you can develop. So some people are more prone to it than others. So it doesn't take
Mm-hmm.
that much effort for them to really master it. Others need to really work on it. And that's just,
Yeah.
we're different. And it's something that you need to
Yeah.
maintain. But when it comes to agility, if you're competing as an agility handler, you're constantly faced with those situations. So it's very hard not
Yeah.
to maintain it.
Yeah. Yeah. And the reason why I ask is I found that when I was at that competition a couple years ago when you and I had that long chat, it was not long after COVID, and something that I found was a very strong skill for me my entire agility career was working towards being able to, if I started off poor in the beginning of a WO weekend, by usually midweek or towards the end, I would be like clawing my way back and I would always do a lot better because I feel like it was a skill that I had learned and developed. But one of the mental blocks and challenges that I was having, a year or so after COVID, because here in Canada, agility just like it was non-existent. I did not compete at all for probably over 2 years, which is the longest I've ever gone doing agility in my since I was 6 years old.
Mm.
It's like in my lifetime, right? And so one of the challenges, one of the blocks that I would get is that I didn't have the feeling, and maybe I did, I just didn't mentally feel like I did, have, like, the comeback kid feeling. I felt like if I started off poorly, I was, like, having these, like, mental blocks or hurdles to think like, "Oh my gosh, like, I feel rusty, I feel out of practice, I'm getting in my head. What if I can't turn this weekend around?" Like, that was, like, a huge I mean, we talked about that weekend. That was a huge block for me, and I think what was so uncomfortable for me is it was not something that I typically would battle. Normally, I would be good at that, but I hadn't practiced that or been in that scenario where I hadn't competed for so long that like it almost felt a bit foreign to me. But it did give me a greater appreciation for people who do battle with that all of the time because it was not fun. Really, it was really hard. It was a hard thing that, took me away from some of the other things I usually focus on that weekend because I was, like, really struggling a lot myself to, like, find my footing and find my good zen spot for that weekend.
Yeah. And worry and doubt is dangerous at an important competition.
Yeah.
And when you start to doubt your own skill sets and especially your ability to recover fast or to get back into a peak performance state, then it could be very difficult to deal with
Mhm.
that yourself. And sometimes,
It almost feels like you're sealing your fate in a
yeah,
way.
it becomes what do you call it? Self-reinforcing behavior belief. It's like you
Yes.
you you have this, you start to doubt your own beliefs, And that sort
Yeah.
of lowers your capacity to actually execute on it. It creates an inaction. It's often what they call
Mhm.
a suffering cycle. So you
Mm.
basically start to think or question your ability. Then you start to feel it
Yeah.
emotionally. And then it creates inaction. And that inaction just generates more thinking and more doubt. And then it just continues like that.
Yeah.
And that's very difficult to break through. And what most people do in that situation is that they try to cope with it themselves, trying to fix
Yeah.
it and try to hide it. But usually, what is best is to have someone that you trust and that you rely on, and just say that I'm just doubting. Can we get the doubts
Yeah.
out? Can we get in on the table and deal with them because I'm not able
Mhm.
to deal with those thoughts and emotions at the moment. Mm,
Yeah.
that's why I believe it's important to have someone you rely on and trust, and a support system, whether that's a training partner, a competitor that you train with on your team or travel with, or a family
Yeah.
member. It really helps.
Yeah. I couldn't agree more.
Yeah. And one of the things I remember was that we had a chat at the WAO, but then
Mhm.
was it the same day or was it at least the same competition? Your dog got hurt at the
Mhm.
WAO. And
Yeah.
I didn't get to talk with you after that happened, but I heard about it. So I remember
Yeah.
texting you and asking if everything was okay.
Yeah. It was pretty rough.
Could you please take us back to that moment and tell us how you managed to pull through that setback?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, that was tough. So our conversation about the mental block happened quite early in the week because I started off not so well. And then I did start to do a little bit better, and I found myself in gamble finals, which was like the big thing that they do on Saturday night where like the stadium's packed and it's pretty electric in there, which is it's pretty awesome. So, anyways, I did my run, and about a quarter of the way through, something fell off. And obviously, there's screaming and there's a lot of adrenaline. So, and something fell off with my dog. It just, my timing seemed off. I couldn't quite put my finger on it. And then I thought, well, maybe it's just nerves. Fast forward to the end of the run. She runs to the out gate. Hopefully, I don't start crying because this is pretty traumatic for me and for her. But anyways, she ran to the out gate. She turned around and looked at me with like wide eyes, and I looked, and her leg was cut open and bleeding all the way down, and she sort of looked very panicked. So I raced over and picked her up, and we had to rush into the emergency. And what ended up happening is when she went over the teeter totter, her paw got caught under the teeter, so it came down and it smashed her foot and broke her toe and sliced her leg up. And I was doing unfortunately, a blind cross at the time in front of the teeter totter. I didn't see it. And it happened so quickly that I don't really think anybody else really noticed. B, bless her, because she has the heart of gold and probably had a lot of adrenaline rushing through her, continued to run another 13 obstacles after that with a broken toe and a severed leg, essentially. Anyways, it's crazy. We ended up having to go to emergency. Obviously, that was it for the weekend. I had made another final on the Sunday, which obviously I was disappointed about, but I wasn't even thinking about that. I was thinking about how do I deal with my dog having to, go to an emergency in the Netherlands in a place that I'm unfamiliar with, and how do I get home and all of these things. So it was pretty it was pretty bad. We ended up Lots happened in the next 48 hours for sure. We ended up getting home. I was really lucky because we were able to get her surgery. So this happened on Saturday night. She was in surgery in Canada at like 9 a.m. on Tuesday morning. That's how fast the people in my life here, my vet is like here is in Ontario, Canada is amazing. So, anyways, she had surgery, and then so this was May of whatever year that was, and I had made AWC in October, mid to late October of the same year. So we were trying to figure out whether she was going to be able to actually run, what the rehab was going to look like, all of that kind of stuff. So then that basically majority of the year was spent on rehabbing and all of those types of things. She was better by October, but I hadn't trained really. Basically, I was only focused on fitness and that type of thing. So I went into Belgium. Maybe that was that AWC that year. I can't really remember. Now they're all kind of morphing together. I think it was Belgium. I struggled a little bit there because I was worried about my dog first and foremost. I hadn't really trained a whole lot. I didn't know if we were really ready to be there or not, and had made the decision that if I went over and something didn't feel right, that I would just it would just be what it would be. Obviously, it would be unfortunate, but obviously my dog comes first. Anyways, we ended up doing fairly well, and it was fine. And in the end, she could have been fitter and we could have been more prepared and all of those things. But that was also really difficult. I remember really having to work hard on like finding a good place mentally to go to Belgium because I didn't really know if it was even a good idea to go or B was fine at that point. She really like honestly she had a bionic foot at that point. Like she was great. But yeah, that was really really difficult, and I just feel like it wasn't until this year, maybe just towards the end of last year, that I feel like I kind of like got my rhythm back a little bit. And then now, of course, my dog's 9 years old and, her career's starting to, you know, come to a close because she's getting a little bit older. So I don't know. There's parts of me that like kind of get stuck on like, I have this fantastic dog. And then I had COVID and then she broke her foot. Also, she got diagnosed with Lyme disease the year before that. And I dealt with that. It's like, if you look at it that way, where you're like, "Oh, I have this and then this and then this and then this," like, "Oh my god, like, why can't I just catch a break?" It is easy to let yourself think that way, especially if you're in a rut or you're feeling bad. But I feel like I really had an excellent mind shift, like, coming into Sweden, like, October of last year, where I was like, "Kate, this could be our last world championship." She's 9. I have literally been through it all with this dog. So, like, there's nothing left. Like, I just need to go and have the best trip ever. And you know what? I did. I had a really great run. I think we came third or not third, fourth or fifth overall. And in one of the rounds, was a team round, I think. And I had a couple other mess ups and a couple other runs, but I had like such a great time. But I think a lot of it was like because where I was mentally. I think I just had let a lot of that go and just was like focusing on enjoying the moment and appreciating the fact that like I don't even know how this dog's still running and doing as well as she possibly is. But it was a long process from the foot break to, just last year. It's 2 years really of a lot of like pretty severe ups and downs for one person and one dog to go through.
Yeah, I agree. And in those situations, like, what would you say is the driving force for you to continue looking back?
I think it's because I'm sure everybody sort of maybe feels this way. You're always trying to chase the feeling that unfortunately you don't get a lot, but that feeling of where like it all like kind of comes together and it feels I don't even know how to describe it. Like when your dog doing exactly what they're supposed to and you happen to be doing exactly what you're supposed to and like everything like falls together, whether you have a great placement or whether it's just I wanted to try and get that feeling in a high pressure situation so that I could feel like I could like check that off my bucket
Mhm.
list. That's sort of what I was going for. And I said before I went, I'm like, I didn't think I was the fastest dog that was there. I wasn't even going thinking that like, oh my gosh, I could win this. I wasn't even there. I knew she would be great. But what I wanted was to be able to be in that type of setting and feel like I belonged, looked like I belonged, but C, like having that feeling of like, okay, all the stuff that I've worked towards, like we did it. Like we did it. There we go. We did it. That was great. And I got that, which I'm so lucky. But of course now I was like, that'll be my last year. And then now they're talking about tryouts. And I'm like, well, what can I do? One kind of like thinking about it because obviously it's just like it's like an addiction that you can't you need to get a little bit more of. So I'm on the fence about that still, but I would love to go back. It's just that feeling of being in that type of energy, and there's just there's nothing like it when it comes to agility at the level that we're all crazy about doing for sure. But I would say that was sort of the force.
It's definitely very special, and it's
Yes.
strange in terms like it's basically 4 runs, dude, and they mean so
It's
much.
so
Yeah.
crazy. You run for like maybe a little bit over a minute if you add them all together, or 2 minutes as you add them all together, and, like, you sit there all week long, like, just, like, in a ball of, like, anticipation, and you go out, and it's just, like, over before you know it. Like, it honestly, it's insane. And when I talk to any non-dom people, they're like, "Oh my gosh, that's amazing. You're going to Sweden. Like, what do you get when you win? Like, how much money do you get?" And I'm thinking, "Oh my god, I can't tell them that, like, I'm spending $6,000 to go over for 2 minutes, and I get absolutely nothing
If you win.
out of it." But if you win, yeah, like, cool, you're the world championship, which I don't mean that's a fantastic. Obviously, we know that is everything, but when you're talking to, like, one of my family members that just think I run around a ring holding a leash and showing off my dog's looks, like, they don't have a hot clue what I do. It does sort of put it into a bit of different perspective to think like, gosh, what we do is absolutely crazy.
Yeah. It
That's but we love it, so we do it.
Yeah, I totally agree. It's like when I speak to friends and let's say we go to a championship and they're always eager. They think like you win $1 million or something like that if you get on the first prize plus a
I
car.
mean, I hope the sport gets there someday. That would be great. But yeah, people have a hard time understanding that we do all of this for, you know, a Facebook post
Yes.
at the end of it.
But it's a game and it's probably not the most important thing in the world, but for us it's important and we like it and I think
Hmm.
that's sufficient for
It's
me.
just so Yeah, it's so dynamic. It's just such an interesting sport. It's it's obviously there's a physical side of it that's really fun and whatever, but like the mental side of it, the strategy side of it, the preparation, all of the things that go into it. It's just it's and what I think is cool about agility is you can do it a bunch of different ways. I know that there's people who are, sometimes what they call weekend warriors that are, interested in going out and getting titles with their dogs and that type of thing. What I think is cool about agility is that like all of those types of goals and values and whatever they want to play can all live, and you can do it in whatever capacity that you want to. We happen to be in a very small, doesn't seem small when we're there because there's thousands of people there. But really, if you look at the grand scheme of things of the overall sport of agility, the level that we're at is it's a very small level that is as crazy about it as we are. But I think it becomes more than agility at the level that we do it. It's about all of the things. Like you're constantly thinking about your craft and what to do better. And like I'm going to sleep at night and I'm like, shifting through like course maps from different judges, and like you're always kind of thinking about it because it's fun. Like it's a passion. It's not work. It's sometimes for me, it can be a distraction. I have 100 million of things I have to do over at the facility to, work on the business. But like my brain's thinking like, okay, I really want to set up this like Stephanie Semcat course on the
Mhm.
weekend and practice it. Like, which is cool. It becomes more than just playing agility. It's like the whole, all of the things that go along with it.
Magnificent obsession.
Yeah. Magnificent's a good word. Sometimes I don't know if that's the word I would use, but 90% of the time, I agree with
Yeah.
you.
Every morning, Ellie and me, we go for a walk in the woods with the dogs. And there are times where I'm talking to Ellie, or at least I think she's listening, but then I can just see her body moving. And I know that she's walking some course in her mind.
I love it.
And I know
I love
that
it.
there's
That's so funny.
no contact with that person at that time. And then
Yeah.
I ask the question, which course are you running? Oh, I'm running this one. this and this judge, and
That's
yeah.
so funny. Yeah, it's crazy how that happens. I was joking with my students a few weeks ago. I was sleeping one night and in my dream, I came up with like a really fun, like proofing exercise. And I kind of woke up and I was like, ugh, I should get up and like put this on a piece of paper so that I don't forget it. But I was tired and I didn't want to do that. And I was like, no, I'm going to get up. And I just like scribbled it on a piece of paper. Then I went back to bed. And then I woke up in the morning and saw it. And I was like, it's awesome. That's a great one. So then when I was teaching it in class that week, I was like, I literally thought of this in my sleep. And everyone's like, you are crazy. And I was like, I can't help it. But you're just, I don't know. It's just, it's in you. I'm not trying to do it. It just sort of happens.
Yeah.
You just got to lean in.
One of the things that I think is very interesting based on what I could catch on, you were talking about AWC for 2025. And
Hmm.
I'm just going to ask it plainly. We talked about expectations earlier on, that as you progress in the sport, the expectations that you have of yourself increases. Would you say that for AWC, you replaced expectations with appreciations due to what UMB went through a couple of years?
Yeah. Yeah. I absolutely do. I definitely think that that was so eloquently said. Good job.
Thanks.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, really. That's absolutely. I think that that was definitely part of the mind shift based on everything that's happened, based on her age and her maturity and where she's in her career. I think that like when it starts to near towards the end, you don't want to like end with like having all of this pressure that like maybe you don't meet that thing and then it's like I don't want to end something great with like a feeling of disappointment or which I think could be easy to do, but I think that's exactly what it was. I think that I had an appreciation for like, whatever happens happens, but like I'm going out with a bang and I do not want to spend a second of the trip being disappointed or, stressed about what's going to happen. I just want to like, you know what? It'll be what it'll be. Like and I don't know why I was able to stay in that mindset for the week. Like I can't remember. I'm thinking back to the trip now. I can't remember. I don't think I had to call for help. I don't think that happened that week. Like I think I truly was in a good place. I also had like an excellent team that year. We had excellent team camaraderie. It just yeah, it was a really good trip. It almost makes me not wanna go again because, like, if I did finish on last year, it was just so wonderful, like, I have such a great memory with it, but yeah. Yeah, I think changing from expectation to appreciation was exactly it, and I don't know if I could say how I did that. I'm not sure. I don't know whether if it was like supposed to happen that way and then it did, or if it was like all the things leading up to it. I don't know. I don't know how I got there. Maybe it's been enough time since all of the trauma that, that I, got into a better place. I'm not really sure, but I'm very, very grateful that it worked out that way for sure.
Well, I definitely believe that you can, if you can map out some of the feelings and the states you were in, you can definitely turn that on as a switch on demand. And that's probably one of the hardest part with mental training, but it's doable because you've have been able to experience it and get
Hmm.
into that way of thinking and feeling and acting. And it is possible to get back to it, but you need to practice it. You need to figure out what was the
Yeah.
code, but it could be in your case that it happened unconsciously, but
Yeah.
there's if you can consciously make that happen on demand, so to speak, that is
It would basically become unstoppable, I
yeah,
think.
I think so. But I think it's very connected
Yeah.
to the expectations part that we set higher and higher expectations of ourselves. We set higher expectations to the sports, to the venue, to the judges. And if the
Hmm.
expectations go too high and we don't necessarily appreciate things too much, then that could have an influence on our states and our performances and also
Yeah.
affect the dogs.
Yeah. I feel like too it would and this might not be true, but my feeling is that if you are able to get there once or twice it's likely easier to get there again because you have now been, it's like dogs, positive reinforcement. If
Yeah.
you're able to get that feeling and it was a good thing, you, hopefully are likely to go back and like be able to revisit it again because hopefully it's not like if I did it once, hopefully it is like if I did it once, I can do it again. But I do think that it is normal. Like I have pretty good intuition, and I do find that sometimes I hate this about myself sometimes, but I can walk up to a course and I sometimes can tell before I even run whether it's going to be a good run or a bad run based on like my energy in the moment. And I can sometimes shift it. And I do have a few things that I do when I start to feel that way. I'm like, okay, this isn't good. And I know this feeling, and it doesn't usually ha- mean something good is about to happen, and I sometimes can shift it and sometimes I can't. And I think before, like early a few years ago, when I would feel that and I was rusty in my coping mechanisms to be able to work through it, I would often like feel that and then still literally be bleeding out from my dog and being like, okay, Cal, like, come on, shift it, shift it, shift it. You're not shifting it. Like I'm trying. And it's just, and then of course, like four obstacles in, I get a refusal or something. And I'm like, I knew that was going to happen. And then I leave and I'm thinking like, why? Like I had that feeling that it wasn't going to go well. And then it did, which is terrible. But I think now it's like, sometimes that's going to happen. Sometimes you are just not going to get your shit together. Like, and you have to just understand that that's part of it. And if you can have that discussion with yourself prior to going in, it helps like kind of take the pressure off a little bit instead of, I think for me, and everyone could be totally different, but for me, the more I try to push myself to change, to get into a different mindset, the less likely I am to be able to do it. I have to like I have my best runs when I'm actually not thinking about anything, or like I'm about to walk in and somebody says something that makes me laugh or, turns my attention to something else. And it could be personality that, that's kind of the person I am as well. But my best runs are the ones where I just sort of walk in, I let it all go and I don't think. I just let myself do the thing that I do best. The forcing of it is not a good tactic for me. It often doesn't go well if it's like too close to the moment. And other people might be able to do that better. Maybe it's a me thing. I'm not really sure, but I do know that enough about myself. I've done it enough times that if I'm like really in the thick of it, I can't always switch it if it's like about to
I
happen.
think a lot of listeners will relate to this. Is like they're trying to force it. And that's basically what they call a hyper intention. So you have an intention of doing something. Let's say that you're going to a competition and it's a long drive or even a flight and you need to catch it. And you need to go to sleep because you would like to have X amount of hours of sleep.
Oh God, you're literally, yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
Keep
you go
going.
to bed at 9 because you have to get up at to go to the airport. And you're
Mhm.
trying to get to sleep and you're staring at the ceiling, trying to get to sleep. And you can't sleep. And the clock is 10 and now it's 10 o'clock.
And then it's 3:45 a.m. and you're like, well, I guess I should just get up 15 minutes
Can
early.
you relate to that?
Oh, it's so sad. It's the worst. I that is like it's a stress for me. Like at competitions, I wouldn't even say that I'm anxious, like nervous, like, oh my God, I'm so worried about this. I'm like high. I'm just thinking about it. I don't want to sleep in. I want to be prepared. I want to be in a good headspace. I want to do all the things I need to do. And then my brain doesn't shut off. It just goes, 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 goes. Yeah. Oh, I'm terrible, especially the first night anywhere. I'm like a psychopath. Like, yeah, that literally, it was like you were like at my house one time and described exactly what was happening with me.
Yeah, but
It's so
it's
annoying. It's the worst.
wanting it too much is actually stopping you from achieving it. One
Yes.
of the interesting thing is the trick to deal with that is actually do the opposite and put in the opposite
Mm,
intention. So if you're having a hard time falling asleep, what you should do is get up, get a really boring book, and then read
mm.
it at a low light and do your very best to stay awake.
It's a great
You'll get
suggestion.
really tired. And the same thing if it's the opposite, you're driving a car and you're getting really tired and you're trying to stay awake, trying to stay awake, you should stop your car. I don't care if it's a 200 meters from your house, stop the car on the side of a road where it's safe, and sleep for 5 to 10 minutes or 15 minutes, and then
Yeah.
continue to drive, because that's the way to do it. One of the
Mhm.
things that I say to agility handlers, if they are nervous or extra excited, is to turn your back to the course and run all you can do in the opposite direction,
Mm.
because then you're allowing your body basically to utilize the fight or flight mechanism, and you're
Mhm.
fleeing away from the situation. That allows your body to relax
Yeah.
instead of trying to force yourself through it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so funny. I actually learned this is sort of interesting. I learned just in the recent years that I actually just organically did like a calming tool mechanism myself that I didn't even know that I was doing. So years ago, to try and control my nerves, I would like try to like hum or sing a song or like kind of distract myself and get myself like a little, you know, chill, a little bit more chill. And the song that I did years ago was this like Christmas carol called Good King Wenceslas. I don't know if you've ever heard of it, or Ode to Joy or something like that. I can't remember exactly what it was. And I would just like repeat this like one thing in the song over and over and over and over again. And like it was dorky and it would just kind of like make me laugh. And then the next competition, I would do it. And I would often get into a good mindset. And then I had a chat with someone. I think it was actually before I went to Belgium when I was really struggling. And they were talking about like the vagus nerve and humming and like some of the other things that you can do to kind of like, relax yourself. She's like, why don't you try like humming a song or singing a song? And I was like, I do that sometimes. I forget about that tool. She's like, oh, you didn't know. Like, oh, but I think probably what was happening is I would do it and then internally it would like soothe me. But I wasn't even doing it intentionally. And then it just sort of like festered from there. So now it's something that I always do. I have like a couple go-to things. I'll like stand and do like my Superman pose. So open stance, hands on the hips, chest up, like I'm a bad bitch. Like I got this. Like, you know, I might not feel it on the inside at the moment, but I am going to look the part so that it would help shift my mind. Or sometimes I'll just over and over go do 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 just over and over and over again. And it just kind of like breaks it up a little bit. And I mean, it doesn't work every time, obviously, but lots of times it does help, like, just get myself into, like, a better mind shift. I'm someone that if the second I start to take something too seriously, I won't do well anymore because that's not what I'm like. I'm a easygoing, silly, hyper outgoing person, and I'm competitive for sure, don't get me wrong, but the second I start, like, if I'm going to bed too early and I'm like, separating myself from people and I'm like not having a beer at lunch or whatever it is, like, there's something wrong with me. But if I'm like being the life of the party and like relaxed and doing those things, I will always do my best because I'm more myself, I'm more relaxed, not like trying too hard. And sometimes it can be a really conscious thing. And sometimes I can find myself shifting, and either I have to remind myself or someone else has to be like, hey, you're being too serious right now. You need to loosen up. Like, remember, remember yourself kind of thing. And that can be really, really helpful. And everyone's different. Some people couldn't do that. They would need to be focused and, separate themselves and get in their game, which is great. That's perfect if it works for them, but that's not good for me.
Yeah, I totally agree. And since I've coached a couple of professional athletes, I always had to change my approach depending on the person I was helping
Mm,
out, because you have to adapt to that person. And I remember one time I had a student while I was working as a personal trainer, a couple of students that were following me for a whole week. And one of the feedback that one of the girls gave was that you have as many personalities as you have clients.
it's actually a really cool
Yeah.
compliment. Did you take it as a
Yeah,
compliment?
I took it as a compliment.
That's so cool. That's
So,
great.
but it's you have to always have to adapt. And I remember a professional
Mhm,
boxer that I trained before, if we were too serious, he would perform worse. If we were like joking
mhm.
around the night before the match, or like having fun and doing all kinds of pranks in the hotel against, yeah, cannot go into the details because it's not good for the
I
podcast.
love it. I love it. You can tell me once we start
Yeah.
recording.
And it's That would definitely change the game for him because if he was serious for too long, he would use that bank account,
Mhm,
and he needed that for
mhm,
the match. And then you
mhm.
can have a totally different athlete who is basically the opposite. If you're joking around, they cannot perform well because then
Yeah,
they will basically call me unprofessional.
yeah.
So you have to know who
It's
you
so
are.
fascinating.
Yeah.
Mhm. Would you say that for some people, like, obviously, I'm a coach myself. I coach many people, and part of it is, helping them to know what to do in agility, and part of it is, like, helping them with their mental game and, like, helping them to get to a certain spot. Would you recommend that people, if they don't know, like, I'm lucky, I figured it out very young what worked well for me, but for people who don't necessarily know that, would you recommend to them to, like, try different things to see if something fits, like, if they don't really know? And, like, do you think it would ever be something that they would be pleasantly surprised works well for them? Like, if somebody's, like, pretty mellow and you were like, "Hey, like, have a crazy night and then see what happens." Like, I mean, maybe it would work. I just think that that's kind of interesting, but is that something that you would recommend to people to,
Yeah.
like, really try different
Yeah,
tactics?
you have to experiment and figure out what works for you. One of the ways that you an easy way to look at it is like what is recharging your batteries and what is using your batteries. And that's different from person to
Yes.
person is for some people like you and me, we're more extroverted, I would say.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
we recharge when we are at a venue, around people,
Mhm.
talking, meeting new people, interesting people, having conversations, and so on.
Mm.
So that's just
Mhm.
recharging our batteries, and that allows us to focus in when we're competing and so on. For Ellie,
Mhm.
it's the opposite. Like you will never see her
Mhm.
in the arena because she needs to go somewhere else to the Airbnb or to the
Yeah.
hotel. And I remember in the contract in I think it was the WAO contract for the Norwegian team is like you had to be in the arena to support your teammates. And
Yes.
I get the point why it's there, but I basically said that's not going to happen for Ailey. When she's done running
Yeah.
and she needs a break, we're just getting in the car and going somewhere else. And
Yeah.
that helps. That is what she needs in order to recharge her batteries. And you have to test and experiment with that to figure out what works for you. And then you continue to do that. What seems to work, you do more of. What doesn't help, you cut
Yeah.
out. And that's the way you
Yeah.
figure it out.
Yeah. Yeah. It makes perfect sense. And I think that that probably comes with time and competing a lot. I think that the more you compete, the more you kind of figure that out, putting yourself in higher pressure situations. I actually think this is weird, but I think one of the things that really helped me early on be a good competitor is that when I was younger, my family, like our family business, would go to fairs, would go to we did a show at the World Series baseball game. We would do football games and we would take the dogs and do these shows. And my dad would always organize the show to like spread out the breed. So it just wasn't like border collie after border collie after border collie. And then obviously the faster dogs and the more talented dogs would sort of be towards the end of the show to build the excitement, that type of thing. And so as I would get better at agility, I would get moved further and further down the running order until I was at the end. And so I would get to practice in front of hundreds, sometimes thousands of people, having to run the course as fast as I could to blasting music, and like I kind of was supposed to win. And so I did that for, 5 shows a day for 7 days in a row, like over and over and over and over again. And I would do well most of the time. And I don't think that I realized it at the time, but that I think was a hugely beneficial practice for me to have to feel the pressure. I mean, at the end of the day, it was a show. I wasn't winning anything. You'd high five your buddies and then you'd reset for the next shot. Like it wasn't that big of a deal, but there was still a little bit of pressure there. So I think that that was so helpful for me to kind of figure out. And I wasn't thinking about anything at that time. I was young, but still, it trickles and travels with you as you move through your competitive. things, whatever happening, whether it's agility or whatever else I was doing at the
Yeah,
time.
you get exposure without the pressure,
Yeah,
and
without the
yeah,
pressure.
that
Absolutely.
helps definitely. That's why we do
Mm,
simulations in different like pilots train in simulators
yeah.
because they want exposure, but not the risk of
Not the
no,
repercussion.
yeah,
Fair.
and that's
Totally.
basically
Yeah,
what it allows you to
absolutely.
do.
Mm.
Sorry, the a Sheltie and the border
Do you have a
collie.
dog?
Yeah, yeah.
Wow.
They're questioning, "When are you done with this podcast?"
I know. Stop talking already, will ya?
In terms of the sport, like, what would you say is the most difficult thing with agility?
Do you mean competition wise, like selfishly, like my own person, or like generally?
If it's
Because I could go a couple different ways with this.
I was thinking more generally, actually.
Okay. I would say that the one of my biggest hurdles is this could be a weird answer, but maybe some people will relate, is because I am a coach to a lot of people. I sometimes, my own internal struggle is making sure that I'm prepared enough because I sometimes get very focused on other people because I want them to do well, which is makes me a great coach, but it doesn't always make me a good competitor because I'm not always putting myself first. So that can be a bit of a challenge. And then you also have the emotional aspect of it. I compete with a lot of my students. I compete with a lot of my closest friends on a regular basis. And I have habit, or not habit, but I have the inclination to be very affected emotionally affected by their, not their wins. I'm happy for them, but their struggles. I like if they're struggling and they're having a bad weekend and then I'm having a good weekend or whatever, I sometimes struggle between like, okay, that's their journey. They got to figure it out. Just gonna have to like do my own thing to like make sure that I don't also plummet now, and then also being supportive and being there for them and that type of thing. But I say that's one of the biggest things, like aside from like my own agility and doing my own thing, but that balance of like being concerned about other people and then also taking care of myself the way that I should. I think has become more of a challenge for me in like the last like 5, 10 years than ever before because I'm coaching more people. I'm coaching more people at a higher level, which is all great. That's wonderful. But it can be really hard. This is a very odd sport in the fact that the people who you train and you develop and you help, you also compete against them. There's not a lot of other sports where amateurs or whatever compete against their coach or professional, whatever. We're all together. So it's hard to kind of make that separation sometimes when you go to those competitions to make sure that you're doing well in both departments.
Yeah, I can definitely see that because they're conflicting in a way, because as a coach,
In a
you would
way.
associate that as someone who is giving, and as a competitor
Mm,
or an athlete, you would say that you're probably there to take something. You're trying to take a prize or take a
yeah.
position, and
Yeah.
those could be conflicting in many ways.
Mhm.
But then it's all about, mm, I would say, becoming consciously aware of who am I showing up as today. And it also
Mhm.
could be related
Mhm.
to what your dad said back when you were young,
Yeah,
in
totally.
terms that everyone is watching all the time. So,
Yeah,
yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, I think that I'm a little bit better now at like I try to have good enough relationships with my crew that I can have good communication to like say what I need in that moment. So like I can join you in the bitter barn soon, but like I need to run my dog and I'll like I see you. I see you're struggling, but like we're going to have to pick this up in 30 minutes. When I actually can give you attention, and most everybody is absolutely they're so respectful, and, like, they want me to do well as well, like, it's good, but I think that the communication is really important because otherwise you just get, like, pulled in a bunch of different directions, and then you're the one that sacrifices from it because you're just trying to be too many things to too many people. The communication is really important. Also, cute thing is I have a couple junior handlers that I help. One in particular, she's been on lots of world teams, and I've been coaching her since she was about like 14, 15 years old. So it was like very much the age where like I was going through a lot of the things, and she's 19 now. But when she was younger, so a few years ago, and she is and she was very talented. She's excellent. You've probably seen her, Jordan Jarvis with Quick. She's been on the WAO
Yep.
team a bunch of times, but yeah, she's great. But when she was younger, she would come out of the ring and she would cry and she would be so pissed off that like she didn't do well. And like her mom, Morgan, who's just the most wonderful person, would be like, she's not listening to me, Kayl, take this. So we'd sit and I would have the same talks with her that my dad would, to say, like, look, this is a lot of pressure for you. It's really crappy that you're so good, because you are capable of doing well. You are really good. Everyone's just constantly telling you how great you are. But if you have a shitty attitude, and people are going to think like, "Oh, look at her. She's stomping around like she's over there crying in the corner." Like, you got to buck up. Like, you have to remember that like no one really cares whether you got first. They care that you look good out there. And like if you looked at that run and you didn't know you would watch you run and be like, "Wow, like she got a couple faults, your dog missed the contact, whatever." But you would look at her and think like, "Holy crap, like that kid is incredible." But it's hard when you're the one in all the feelings to like understand the perception and the impact that other people are seeing or feeling from you when they watch. So she, she had to move through it, and she's she's like a completely different person now. She's absolutely amazing. But it was kind of like a fun, like, little full circle moment for me to be like, "Gosh, I remember." And I think that helped me relate to her too. I was able to say, like, "I remember being so mad when I wouldn't, do the thing, because I knew I was capable. I knew I could do it. It's so disappointed." So, like, I get it. Go out back and kick the fence. I don't care what you do, but you're not gonna do it with all of these people watching you. Like, that has to be what has to be. And anyways, yeah, I just adore her. She's great. But it was like a nice full circle moment. And I know that she will do that for like the next
Yeah.
person as well, because that's just the kind of person she is. I definitely see a lot of myself in her in terms of her competitiveness and stuff, but she's the type of person that will pass it on, which I think is great.
And I think that I remember one time we did an exercise. It's actually a very horrible and sad exercise, but you're basically going to write the speech for your funeral.
You're really Oh, okay.
And
Tell me more.
when you do that exercise, you're basically asked to reflect afterwards. How much is this speech based on your merits and what you accomplished, based on who you were as a
Mhm.
person?
Yeah.
And that should get you to reflect that you should first decide on who are you going to show up as today and do your very best to be
Yeah.
that person. And I think it's the same thing when you go to a competition, whether that's a local competition or a big event. It's
Yeah.
like, what type of handler am I going to show up as today? Or dog owner or whatever it
Mm.
might be.
Yeah.
And that sets the
Yeah.
stage for a more correct mindset, I would say.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. Yeah. I don't know if it's a bad thing, but I actually had a conversation with somebody kind of along these lines, but I hope I don't say the opposite to what you're hoping I say. But somebody was talking about how they wanted to be remembered. And I had said, like, I hope that, like, when I'm dead and gone, people don't look back and go, like, "Oh, Kayl, yeah, she was nice." I would feel like I failed at life if that's like, if people were like, "Oh, she's nice." I would want them to look back and be like, "Oh yeah, she was a go-getter. She was like a dig in, like, bad bitch," like that. Like, if somebody was like, "Oh yeah, she was nice," I would be like, "Oh, I failed. I'm like, I need more from from that." So, I mean, not that if you're a nice person and that's what you're great at, that's wonderful. I don't want to not be nice, of course, but when I look back, I don't want to be remembered as just like one of the others that was like, "Oh, yeah, she was nice." So, sort of the same concept, but maybe a little more, maybe not as
It
good.
makes
I don't
sense,
know.
but it's allowing you to think more, and then it's easier to do something about because that is something that you can definitely
Yeah.
choose and control to a certain degree. rather than what you will get. And it's more about how you handle events rather than what are the events that happens.
Totally. Totally.
In terms of one of my favorite questions is always to ask the guests, what is a lesson that some of your dogs or all of your dogs has taught you that a person or a coach couldn't?
That was a great question. I mean, I feel like I kind of touched on this a little bit before when I talked about Funky, but I always say that she is the dog that like made me the trainer that I am
Mm.
today. I think that because of her sensitivity, and she had a lot of potential, and I knew that about her, and I had lots of great dogs prior to her. So I think that when I got her, I didn't realize it at the time, but I was putting a lot of unfair expectations on her. I basically was like, okay, she's my next world team dog. Like she's going to be it. And my timeline for what I had envisioned it being was not her timeline. And it forced me to kind of have to realize that you have to look at what's in front of you and then deal with that, not putting expectations that aren't realistic for that moment. And it really changed how I showed up for every other dog that I've had since her. Luckily, I haven't had dogs that have been as sensitive, or have I? And then I just didn't have the same problems because I approached it differently. I don't know. I don't know. I guess I'll never know. But I do think that her being that way and me being able to actually learn to pivot and adapt to what she needed and to allow her to flower and prosper and maybe go a little slower and do things a little differently. I had to stop doing international crazy stuff and I took it back to really simple things, and we didn't worry about mistakes and we kept things light, and it was all about not about her ability. It was everything that I did. I asked myself, okay, how is she going to feel about this? And is it going to make her up or is it going to bring her down? And then that's how I would kind of sort through it. But it made me be a more patient trainer. It made me be a more present trainer for my dogs. It made me be more patient, to have better expectations with a dog as well. I mean, I think with my young dog, I'm probably going slower than I need to. He's 4 now, and I have hardly done any big competitions with him. So maybe I need to like stop babying him so much, but I also think that it has changed my coaching ability. So when other people are struggling with similar things in terms of, you know, too much expectation on their dog or disappointment or attitudes that negatively affect their dogs, I have so much to pull now from, to, in order to share. So I know I kind of mentioned that a little bit before, but I think that that was like personally a huge change for me and all my dogs going forward, but also professionally. It like really opened my eyes that like you can't get to the finish line with one way. And even though that one way worked with the dogs I had prior, it was absolutely not going to work with her. And if I had any hope of like achieving what I was hoping for, I had to learn to pivot. And then that just like, we just changed completely everything. So yeah, I always like so grateful for her because she was like a dog I was so attached to. And I think one of the reasons why we were so bonded is I had to work so freaking hard for it. Like Beeline, my border collie, walk in the park. She is so easy. And Funky Monkey, who's the dog I was referring to, the soft and sensitive girl, she just made me work so hard for it. And it was like, it just created like a completely different relationship between the two of us because of it. So, yeah, that was really cool. I know I would absolutely not be the trainer or handler or coach or anything that I am today if I didn't have to go through like that journey with her. It was like hugely instrumental for me for sure.
Yeah. You got the dog you needed, not the dog you wanted necessarily.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I have used that line on many of people now, and it it was absolutely, she was the dog I needed, not the dog I wanted necessarily at the time. And I have a friend right now that has is struggling with a dog, and I just said that to her, like, you need to think about this less like you know, the dog that you're going to do all the things with. You have a hard dog this time, and it is going to completely change everything for you if you can just keep training and not get so emotionally bent about it. Like, if there's a bigger thing happening here than you just being able to get around the course. But you have to decide that it's what you want to get from it. If you just get so stuck on the fact that it's not working, this is going to be what it's going to be. So at the end of the day, like, each person has to figure out what they want to get from it, which is hard to do. I recognize that it's hard to do, but it can be like a huge change for someone if they can like look at the bigger lesson instead of what happens to be happening in that moment. And then often what happens is 6 months down the road, all of a sudden it's like, oh, this is happening great, and this is happening great, and this is happening great. It's like, do we remember our little breakdown, Mariah Carey meltdown that we had 6 months ago when things weren't going so well? Like, my mom always said to me when I was younger, like having my own challenges with my dogs, and she would like always be so helpful to me. She's like, Kayl, just keep training. Just keep training. Stop getting worried about it. Just keep training. It eventually, it will happen. Whatever you want to happen will happen. Just keep training. And it's so true, because eventually you sort of look back and you're like, oh gosh, I can't really remember when it used to be so frustrating or whatever. It just sort of like fades into the distance. But when you're in the moment, it feels like the whole world's ending.
Then you forget all about it, and then you just remember the good times.
I know. I know, exactly.
What is the next thing on your journey looking forward?
Agility-wise, the next thing on my journey is to shift my focus from my current agility dog Beeline to my young dog, 5. He's a Whippet Border Collie Terrier mix, and he's so cool, just so cool. So he's 4 now, and he's at the point where I need to rip the Band-Aid and just get out there. So I'm hoping to shift my focus a bit more to him next year, which is I'm really excited about. He's really so much fun. So agility-wise, I would say that's going to be sort of where I'm putting my focus. And then, as I mentioned a few times, I'm still on the fence about whether I want to. I can't do AWC with 5 because he's a mixed breed. So if I do have hopes of attending that event again, it has to be with B, and she'll be 9 at the time, which I know lots of dogs older than that go. But I think I'm just like, I have her in bubble wrap now because I just want her to stay so perfect and healthy forever now that she's perfect and healthy. So that might be another goal for next year if I feel like it's the right thing. Tryouts are in April for us. So I'll go through the motions, and I mean, I got to make the team first, and then from there I'll make a decision. But that's hopefully another thing I'm hoping to achieve in terms of agility next year.
It wouldn't hurt to try.
Yeah, that's what I figure. It doesn't hurt to try. Even if I say no, then I'll never know. So I'll go. I'll see what happens. If it's meant to be, it's meant to be. But I'm trying not to think too much about it because I don't think that that's helpful.
I agree. In terms of people listening to this podcast and wanting to learn more about you and what you do at McCann, where can they go?
Well, if you want to learn more about me and the agility side of things, the best thing to do is to check out my socials. I'm on Facebook and Instagram, not on TikTok. I do more scrolling on TikTok than I do posting. But you can follow either me or most of my agility stuff. I try to maintain some type of normalcy. So more personal stuff is on Kayl McCann, but anything agility related is on McCann Dogs Agility. And then if you're interested in like dog training stuff, basic obedience, that type of thing, then anything McCann Professional Dog Trainers or McCann Dogs is all of our family business, like dog training stuff, which is really cool too.
Definitely put the links in the show notes so that people can get easy access as well. So that's good. Thank you so much for taking the time, Kayl. It's so cool that we sit on the opposite side of the world and having this conversation.
I know. It's so cool. Yeah, this is great. Thank you so much for inviting me. I was excited. We have lots of great chats, so it's nice to be able to like dive in a little bit deeper.
Yeah, and I always look forward to meet you in person again and continue the conversation. But for the listeners here, we have to cut it off. But thank you so much for listening in, and thank you, Kayl, for sharing your story.
Thank you.
Again, I would like to thank you, Kayl, for joining us for this episode and for sharing your story. It's been a joy. It's been a joy to listen to again while I've been editing. And I hope that you, the listener, had as much enjoyment of this episode that I did. If you haven't yet, I really recommend that you go and check out Kayl McCann's YouTube or McCann Dogs on YouTube. You will find the link in the show notes, so you can go there and click on it. Also in the show notes, there's a bunch of resources that you can check out. One of them is the Daily Champion newsletter, which is affirmations that you get sent to your email every single day. In addition to that, I just shared a free habit tracker that you can now use at the beginning of the year to track your habits and have a visible cue somewhere like in your kitchen or bedroom, but not just using it for January, but using it for February, March, April, May, etc. throughout the year and building solid habits for 2026. And if you haven't yet subscribed to this podcast, please do so and leave some remarks. That really helps others to see this podcast as well. Then again, thank you so much for listening to this episode, and I will see you in the next one next week. My name is Christoffer Endresen. This is the Champion's Journey.